Good evening. I'm sorry we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. This is the East Zone Community Meeting for Tuesday, September the 14th. Currently, we're sitting at 960,470 acres with 75% containment and 2,413 personnel. First up, we'll have fire weather with incident meteorologist Eric Kurth.
Good evening, Incident Meteorologist Eric Kurth. Well, today we saw sort of the culmination of a hot, dry period. This is the peak, probably the hottest day we're going to see for a while. We got up into the 90s down in the valleys and in the 80s up on the ridges. In addition to being hot, it was also very dry. We had humidity levels down even to single digits as well as the teens. So hot and dry, but we didn't have a lot of wind. We had some west-northwest winds that picked up later in the afternoon that gusted up to 15 miles an hour on the real high ridges, but really generally not a lot of wind, so not a lot of concern with that. Now we are seeing a change that's coming for the rest of the week. And you can see from this chart, we're shifting over to a southwest onshore flow pattern, and we're going to see that for the next week. That's going to bring some cooling. Temperatures are going to be dropping down from the 80s and even down to the 70s by the weekend. So it's going to feel a lot more like fall. In addition to the temperatures dropping, we are going to see relative humidity levels gradually increasing through the week. And by the weekend, we'll be up in the 30s on Sunday. So quite a bit more moist than what we've had. And then, of course, those temperatures will be dropping as well. One concern we have, though, in addition to that temperature drop, we do see some wind increasing. So the southwest winds gusting to 25 miles an hour tomorrow, and you can see a gradual increase into the upper 20s, and Saturday 35 miles an hour. We are going to see some moistening, though. So when the winds are really peaking, the humidity levels are also going to be coming up. So that'll sort of alleviate some of the concerns. Probably the biggest concern for the week would be Friday, when we do have some winds gusting up to 28 miles an hour, and humidity is still sort of on the low side at 17%. But I think overall the humidity will be coming up enough that there isn't a real large concern. And then by the weekend, so we're quite a bit more moist. Temperatures are low, and we could also see some rain. It doesn't look like a lot of rain, but we could see maybe 1 to 2/10 of an inch over the fire area. So that's certainly encouraging that possibility. We'll be watching that to see that how it develops, if maybe it gets wetter or not. Thank you. Have a good evening.
That's a little bit of good news. Thank you, Eric. Next up, we're going to have our fire behavior analyst, Patrick Doyle.
Good evening, everyone. Patrick Doyle, fire behavior analyst. I guess I'm repeating it myself. But anyways, what I wanted to talk to you about this evening is, as you heard from Eric, we have this good news coming into this weekend. But you also heard tomorrow is kind of the peak of this trend that we have. Well, also one of the things is that trend where we're at tomorrow, we were pretty much right there right before we had the wedding rain last Friday. So tomorrow, we still have potential of existing heat that's in the fire footprint to still be pretty active. But overall, and I guess that this is the bigger picture I want to give you, overall, we have minimal activity within the fire footprint. On the east side, on the west side of the fire, down by Story, all the way up till you get up to Mount Huff, very little activity, if any at all. It's completed. It's been a couple months going through that burn cycle there. It's either been consumed or it's gone out on its own. As we move around to Grizzly Ridge and then head out to the east side by the escarpment, we still have stump holes that are holding heat, and they're still also popping up here and there. But overall, they're diminished significantly. You look out there, you may not see anything happening, But we do have infrared that flights being done, so we know that it's out there, and we have boots on the ground that also report back. So in those areas, most everything that's heat near the line it's not showing. The fire behavior is really, it's hiding in the stump holes at that point, and you'll see some interior pockets that will still pop up every now and then. Expect that tomorrow and the next day. As we go into the cooling trend of the weekend, you should see some of those also diminish too, either because they are consumed, they've been put out, or the increase in moisture in the atmosphere, nighttime recovery, took them to a point that they're not able to maintain their heat. And then with that, I think if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you for that, Patrick. Just as a reminder, if you do have questions, please use the chat function, and we will continue to take care of those throughout the community meeting and through the evening. Next up, we're going to have a situational update from the west side from Operations Dave Updike.
Good evening, this is Dave Updike with your west zone of the Dixie Fire update. What we're going to do is we're going to take a little kind of cruise around the map here. And so if you look at Highway 36, the Highway 36 corridor, as we're going across Highway 36, all of this area here is currently in a patrol status, and we're at that point where we're backhauling and we're taking out some of the hose that's already been in there. We have 0 smokes and no hot spots to report. As we're moving up that west side, getting in towards the park entry road, all of this area here below the park entry road should be at the end of today in that patrol status. We're not finding any heat in there, but we are going to have a presence for the next 2 to 3 days of having firefighters patrol that area, just making sure that it is out and no longer have any heat in there. That piece above the park entrance road, there's this little piece right here. That piece there was a pretty difficult piece to put control line into, and that was a piece of area that had a lot of snags or dead trees in the area, and so there are hotshot crews that are currently out there today, and they're putting in direct hand line, and they're trying to tie that section of the fire back into that entrance road. And that should be completed by the end of today's shift. And if it is, then this section here will then become into patrol status. Going up through the west side of the fire, up towards the peak and around the top back down, this section here in the area of Old Station and Hat Creek. This is the area here where we do have some heat still left in the line, and we're going to be using not only the firefighters that have been there for quite some time, but the National Guard's been in there. And then tomorrow we're going to be having the active duty military as the Army coming in to add capacity and really trying to find any of those hot spots that are in there and start trying to reduce any of the heat that's in that section. What we're hoping to do is throughout the weekend make a different decision on, once we've accomplished getting some of that heat out, that then we can put this into patrol status, but that decision won't be made until sometime in the weekend. As we come across the east side of the fire, and you see this section here that's still not quite blacklined on the map, that section there at the end of today, we're hoping to be able to say that there is no longer heat threatening the line and that we can move that into patrol status as we come across this section here. As this section here comes down into Westwood, back down into the 36, this section here is already in patrol status, and we're looking really confident there that we should be able to start pulling the hose out and then continue to monitor that area there in patrol status with firefighters up and down the line, making sure that no heat reproduces in that area. That's it for your update today on the West Dixie. Thanks and have a great night.
All right, that was a great message from the west side. Next up, we'll have Operations Carrie Gilliland.
Good evening, Carrie Gilland, Operations for California Incident Management Team 1. This evening, I'm going to start down towards Indian Creek. In Indian Creek, we've got a hotshot crew. They've been working this portion of line all the way up towards Devil's Punch Bowl. The resources out there today, they had some backpack pumps. They mopped up areas of heat, and they've been working in here for the last couple of days. We should start to see minimal smokes. We will continue to have some areas of heat throughout that. As we continue up towards Grizzly Ridge, we continue to have resources patrolling and mopping up the entire ridge line going all the way out to the south-southeast. As we get towards this red line, this portion, the resources have continued to mop up roughly 300 feet. We should be able to blackline that, which will add to the containment of the incident. As we progress out towards Lake Davis, out towards Turner Ridge, again, resources are continuing to patrol. They're mopping up, backhauling any unnecessary supplies out towards Lake Davis. As we continue out towards the Beckworth-Genesee Road, again, a lot of continued patrol mop up. We do still have additional heat as well as large consumption of heavy dead and down still burning throughout this area that they're continuing to mop up. As we progress out towards where we get to Horton Ridge, we did have some areas in here today where some trees burned out. They fell over and we had some stuff right on the line. We did have the National Guard out there and they were mopping up all these areas within here. And we are going to be able to add some additional black line going out towards Horton Ridge. As we progress back to the Sugar Fire Scar, we've had no additional growth. Going all the way back to 395, fire has stayed within the existing fire footprint. Around 395, we have had additional smokes that folks have been calling in. Those have been well within the existing containment lines, and they've been no concern to the edge of the fire. Resources continue to patrol and mop up out to where this red line is. Again, resources have mopped up, done a lot of good work in there. This portion should be black lined, adding to the containment as well. As we continue out past Black Mountain, continuing out to the existing fire scar, resources continue to patrol and mop up. The fires had no additional growth. Within the Walker Fire Scar, no real concern. We've had no additional spread throughout that portion. As we progress up towards what is the Milford spot, everything going all the way down just to the west of Milford out to 395, all the way north out towards Draw Point 282. Resources continue, they patrol, they mop up, and make sure there's no areas of concern in here. However, there are additional smokes, areas of heat that folks are seeing and calling in out here, and we continue to monitor. As we progress out past the division break, and we continue down towards Genesee Valley here, resources have continued to patrol and mop up. Everything within Taylorsville going all the way out towards Draw Point 125, out towards Indian Valley, all the resources have been actively backhauling any hose. They've been dealing with any areas of heat, any trees, and any materials that are continuing to burn that might be unburned vegetation throughout that area. As we continue back down towards the Butterfly Valley Botanical Area, continuing out towards the western portion of the fire, out towards Meadow Valley, resources are continuing to patrol and mop up this portion. Everything within the PCT as well as the Wilderness, Bucks Lake, there's heavy suppression repair in here. As you guys start to see excavators, any dozers, that's all the work being done in this area to do suppression repair out there. As we progress out to the west past Bucks Lake, continuation of suppression repair going all the way to the west. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. That was a great explanation on what's going on the fire. Next up, we're going to have Plumas County Sheriff Todd Johns.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, I'm Todd Johns, Plumas County Sheriff. Yesterday, I lifted all remaining mandatory evacuation orders, and some warnings still remain in effect. As you see, the fire activity continues to decrease, and my guess is that as the fire activity decreases, so will the warnings. So I would ask that you go to community.zonehaven.com for updates, and we'll be updating that daily. I would request that you continue to remain vigilant for possible fire activity. I want to remind folks that not too long ago we had the campfire. Campfire was well into the latter part of the year. We still have dry conditions out there, so even if this fire is put completely to rest, just be vigilant, okay? Structure damage information has been poised online for the damage caused at the west end of the Dixie Valley area. Folks that live in that area, please go to plumascounty.us website to find the link under the Dixie Fire tab. You can look at the assessments of damage there. At this time, my team's transitioning from the response phase to a recovery efforts. And in coordination with that, and in coordination with FEMA and Cal OES, a disaster recovery center was opened today at 101 Meadowbrook Loop in Chester. So again, that's 101 Meadowbrook Loop in Chester. The center will be open until the 27th. The hours are from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Transportation from Quincy and Portola, if you would like to go to that, is available free of charge. And if you do need those services, please contact 283-6586. Again, that's 283-6586. And you can go to the plumascounty.us under the Dixie Fire tab for additional details of that disaster recovery center. I just quickly want to cover, I talked about this on Sunday, some of the scams that we've been seeing. I apologize, I'm not going to try to draw this out too much, but if someone comes to your door and they claim that they're federal or local disaster workers and they do not solicit or accept money, don't trust anyone who offers financial help and then asks for money or personal information. Do not disclose information to any unsolicited telephone calls or emails from individuals claiming to be FEMA or federal employees. FEMA will not contact you unless you have called FEMA first or applied for assistance. FEMA representatives will ask for Social Security number and bank account numbers when you apply and may ask for it again after you apply. Be cautious when giving this information to others who ask. Scam artists may pose as government officials, aid workers, or insurance company employees. So again, if you've solicited the assistance of FEMA, they will contact you and ask you for those things. If you have not solicited FEMA and people contact you, you should not be giving them that information. If you contact them personally, ask to see ID badges. All FEMA representatives carry an identification badge with a photograph. A FEMA shirt or jacket is not proof of identity, so they're going to have an actual badge. Phony property inspections also occur when these things are going on. Be wary of unexpected phone calls or visits to your home from people claiming to be FEMA housing inspectors or saying they work for FEMA. FEMA representatives will have a laminated badge and your FEMA registration number. Housing inspectors never charge a fee to inspect your property. Be on alert if somebody asks you for your 9-digit registration number. FEMA inspectors will never ask for this information. They already have it in their records. Do not give your banking information to a person claiming to be a FEMA housing inspector. FEMA inspectors are never authorized to collect your personal financial information. No government disaster assistance official will call you to ask for your financial account information. If you doubt a FEMA representative is legitimate, hang up and call the FEMA helpline at 1-800-621-3362 to report the incident. And again, those numbers are 1-800-621-3362. Tomorrow there will be an in-person town hall meeting at the Greenville High School. I believe it's going to be held in the cafeteria building, which is between the high school and the elementary school, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So again, that's tomorrow in Greenville. I believe it's going to be at the cafeteria. There is a plan to live stream this event if we can get enough coverage to do so. And there will be speakers from the county, Cal OES, and FEMA to talk about and give a recovery update. And I just want to say that I'm not in the position to promise the world to the folks who have suffered from this fire and lost residences and structures and property. But I have been very committed to putting people in front of you that can give you the most assistance available. And I can only do that when you, one, tune into these types of town hall meetings, or if you actually go to town hall meetings in person. So I encourage everyone to attend these meetings, get the information that you need to assist you in the recovery process. I know it's going to be a lengthy process, but again, We're going to get you all available help that we can. And I ask that you continue to follow our website and our Facebook page. And I also want to continue to thank the public, all those folks that have assisted not only my agency, but the fire folks that are here, all of the support staff, for the fire folks. I mean, tonight I walked around the fire camp and there's a group of guys out back here that have, I don't know, looks like several thousand miles of hose that they're trying to wind up. And it's a huge undertaking. I can't say enough about them and the public. I just want to thank you again. And the last is we're going to watch a small video now from SBA, Small Business Association, that was pre-recorded. So stand by while we get that going. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Williams. I'm a public information officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Assistance. And we're here on behalf of the devastating wildfires that impacted, Plumas, Lassen, Nevada, and Placer counties. I got all four. So one of the things we really want to make sure is that the first step in the disaster recovery process is to register with FEMA. You can go ahead and go to disasterassistance.gov, or you can call the 800 number, which is 800-621-3362. Now, once you register with FEMA, you may receive a referral to our agency, the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Assistance. And so as a homeowner or renter, one of the main questions people may ask is, why SBA? I don't own a business. So during times of disaster, the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Assistance offers home loans and to our homeowners up to $200,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, and up to $40,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property, which would also include any automobiles that may have been damaged as a result of these devastating wildfires. Now, with the home loan program, interest rates are as low as 1.562%. It's a deferment of up to 1 year. So again, this allows that homeowner to be able to replenish all their real estate, build their real estate back, or kind of purchase any kind of new personal property or vehicle before they start the repayment process. Also, renters can borrow up to $40,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property, which would include any vehicles as well. And again, interest rates, terms are up to 30 years for repayment. Interest rate, again, as low as 1.562%. And again, it's a 1 year deferment, and there's no cost to apply, no closing costs. These are your federal taxpayer dollars at work. Now, to tie everything in, especially for our homeowners and renters, the reason why it's so important to apply if you are referred to the U.S. Small Business Administration is that there's a program called Other Needs Assistance. And the whole purpose is that if you are referred to the U.S. Small Business Administration and we're unable to approve you for an SBA loan, we're going to refer you back to FEMA for further grant assistance through the Other Needs Assistance Program. So that's why it's so critical that if you receive the referral to U.S. Small Business Administration, that you submit that application, because again, even if you're approved, you're not under any obligation to take the loan. But we do strongly encourage you to go ahead and kind of complete that application process to check that box. Now, for the businesses can also borrow up to $2 million to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, machinery, inventory, and equipment. But most importantly, especially during times of disaster, as we see some of the devastating damage in Greenville and the surrounding areas where some of the businesses are completely destroyed, there may be months where their business may not be operational. And that's the purpose of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, to provide working capital for the business to sustain themselves during this recovery period. The one thing we always say during the recovery is that even though disaster strikes, you still have to pay employees, you still have to pay your monthly lease or monthly mortgage mortgage obligations. You still have to contribute towards your employee's health plan. So having the economic injury disaster loan, the working capital, is very important to sustain that business during this recovery period from this devastating wildfires. Now, business loan interest rates are as low as 2.88%. Again, businesses can borrow up to $2 million, which will be inclusive of any physical damage and also the economic injury. And for any business that may not want to pledge collateral, they can also borrow up to $25,000 for their economic injury and then another $25,000 for their physical loss without pledging collateral. So that's one of the concerns that always comes about, is that I want, some funds for my business, but I may not want to be able to, pledge collateral. So that is an option for our business owners. Another option for our business owners, especially for those that may have COVID loans, they can still have a loan program or borrow up to $25,000 for the COVID EIDL, in addition to the helping for the wildfires. So again, that just helps them out through this process. And our nonprofits can borrow the same. They're treated similar to businesses, but it's a fixed interest rate of 2% for our businesses, but they can borrow money to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, machinery, inventory, and equipment, as well as the working capital. And the one thing that especially I try to bring it home as I close, I want to make sure I keep within our time parameters. For nonprofits, when you think about a number of different events, this is the peak of tourism season in Plumas and Lassen counties. So we want to make sure that if there's any events such, like just a case in point, the Elks Lodge in Chester, they had a pancake, thing that was canceled. They had a car show that was canceled. Well, for that nonprofit, that's economic injury. And that's why we want to make sure that our nonprofits are also applying for the economic injury disaster loan program. But if you have any questions, the one thing we always encourage you to do is apply. Go to disasterloan.sba.gov, or you can just go to the SBA.gov website or contact our customer service center, which is 1-800-659-2955, or feel free to email me, Corey, Corey, .williams@sba.gov. I'll be more than happy to direct you to any resources in regard to the devastating wildfires. And I just thank you so much for your time today.
All right, that was a great message. We will also post a Spanish language version in the chat history. We did have a question about one of the evacuations for the Dixie Valley area, and Plumas County Sheriff Todd Johns will go ahead and answer that.
So yes, I had a question about Dixie Valley. So again, we've reduced all mandatory evacuation orders to warnings as in the areas that had mandatory. So Dixie Valley has been reduced to a warning. Folks can return to that area. However, I do want to remind those folks that have damaged outbuildings or have lost structures that you don't want to sift those properties until phase one has been completed. And then even then, you want to make sure that you don't disturb the debris footprint of the property, or that could preclude you from getting assistance of phase two, which would be the cleanup. But again, Dixie Valley has been reduced to a warning at this time. And again, as the fire activity dies down, my sense is that that warning would be removed in the next couple of days. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Sheriff. We had one other question come in, and I'm going to take it real quick before we move to our next speaker, and that was on hotspots being put out in Warner Valley. And from Carrie Gilliland, the operations, all heat that is a threat to any of the fire line, they are working on that as a priority, and then as those areas are picked up, they'll be moving more interior to get some of those other hotspots and stump holes that she referred to earlier. Our next speaker is going to be the agency administrator for the Plumas National Forest, Ann Carlton.
Thank you, and welcome everyone this evening. Ann Carlson, Agency Administrator for the Plumas National Forest. So, music to an agency administrator's ears, back haul. That's great. We like to hear that mop up It means we have a really high confidence in the lines, that it's cold in that area, that the lines have been tested, that we feel that we can pull things out at this point and go ahead and make sure everything's cool. So for me and for the Forest Service, we are so happy to be starting to hear these terms and to see more and more black line on the map, and I'm sure you all are happy about that too. So this is really hard work at this point. I mean, it's all really hard work, but it doesn't get any easier with mop-up and backhaul. It's back-breaking, hard labor to pull hose, bring it in, and as the sheriff mentioned, we have mountains of fire hose. I went back today, and the California Conservation Corps crews are working hard to stretch out, clean that hose, and re-roll it for another fire another day. And it's going to take weeks and weeks for them to do it. So also, I wanted to mention that the forest has been under 2 closures. One is related to the fire itself and the fire footprint and our operations within the fire perimeter, and that's a Plumas National Forest closure. Another closure was placed in addition to that by the regional office to ensure that we didn't get any new starts on any of the national forests in California. And that larger closure will be lifted at midnight tomorrow on Wednesday the 15th. And so the areas that are not included in the fire closure for the Plumas will be available again for recreation, hiking, bike riding, those kinds of things. But please be aware that you are not allowed to have any open flame, any campfires. You can have stoves with a turn-off valve, but no campfire, no s'mores. I'm sorry. It's just, we just cannot risk having another start. As you can tell, all our employees are working hard on fires that are ongoing or mopping up or closing things down. They're just busy and not available for any new starts. So that's why across California, again, all the national forests, no open flame, no campfires. So with that, I just really want to thank you for your cooperation and helping us to prevent any more forest fires. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Ann. I do want to remind everybody first a little bit of an apology for this morning. We had, earlier today, we had some internet issues. We are recording this. It will be available on our Facebook pages, the Plumas and Lassen National Forest, and also CAL FIRE's Lassen MODOC page, our YouTube, StoryMap, and InciWeb for those of you who don't use Facebook. For closing comments, we have our Deputy Incident Commander, Curtis Coots.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to first start out with, over the last week, with California Incident Management Team working with the cooperators and collaborators for that most part has been just a team effort. We couldn't be where we are today without Sheriff Todd Johns for certain and all the other cooperators. And we're going to continue to work with the Sheriff's Department and the other local agencies to effectively and efficiently continue to reduce the orders that we have in place, evacuation orders, just to reassure you. So with that, the other things that we've got to consider, you heard operations talk about suppression repair and still some areas that we need to concentrate on suppression activities. And, we're going to still focus, on those soft areas that we know we don't have blacklined as a priority. So that will be number one before we truly transition the primary amount of the resources that we have over to suppression repair, over the dozer lines, hand lines, road systems, etc. And then from there, we're going to really focus on the making sure that is really buffered and barriered, because as weather stated, we all know it comes prior to a storm front, and he mentioned it. The winds are going to test us later on this week, so we want to be prepared for that. So we're going to do our due diligence to make sure we've got adequate depth in these areas before we turn them black, or once again really introduce the full fledged of suppression repair. So with that, I really appreciate your time tonight, and if you have any questions, I'll be around. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Curtis. Again, we don't have any additional questions, but please feel free to reach out in that chat. We will continue to answer your questions through the evening and in tomorrow. We will also be posting when our next community meeting is. And with that, that's the end of the community meeting for tonight. Thank you and good night.